All free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. And therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the word, Ich bin ein Berliner.
John F. Kennedy's words carry new meaning for the Jewish community in Berlin. As the city prepares again to become the capital of Germany, Jewish culture is cautiously re-emerging more than 50 years after the Holocaust. The streets still show the legacy of the past, a city torn apart by war, left to years of neglect. But in the old Jewish neighborhoods, families are now beginning to re-establish Jewish life. The Schnapp family has lived in Berlin for 4 generations. David's bar mitzvah is cause for celebration. But the return of Jewish tradition to the heart of Berlin arouses mixed emotions. Only a few of Berlin's Jews survived the Nazi terror. David Schnapp attends Berlin's Grosse Hamburgerstrasse School, which only recently reopened after it was shut down by the Nazis in 1942.
בבקשה, לכתוב.
Before the Nazis came to power, Berlin was home to more than 50,000 Jewish people who formed a thriving community. Children were raised as proud Berliners, as German as they were Jewish. But the Holocaust brought more than 1,000 years of Jewish life in Germany to a halt. More than 50 years later, a small group of former students from Grosse Hamburgerstrasse reunited the school. Most are returning to German soil for the first time since the Holocaust. This is the story of their school days under the Nazis. It begins in the early 1930s in an economically depressed Germany after years of anti-Jewish propaganda by a rising political figure, Adolf Hitler.
Well, Hitler came to power on January 30th, 1933. That day, today, is very vividly in my mind. I remember my father coming in, my mother being in the bedroom, and my father apparently telling my mother about what has happened, and my mother crying. My father puts his arm around my mother's shoulder and says, don't worry, he won't last a week.
One of the students, then a 9-year-old boy, witnesses a public burning of books that are marked by the Nazis as degenerate and un-German. Standing at the back of the crowd, the young boy listens to Hitler's propaganda minister, Joseph Goebbels, launch his assault on Jewish culture. These books I commit to the flames.
Nur das Johlen und wie man da haufenweise Bücher genommen hat und hat sie auf so einen Stapel, auf so eine Art Scheiterhaufen raufgeworfen. Unter Johlen und so weiter. Ich habe später erfahren, ja. Aber wir haben so mal gehört, wer Bücher verbrennt, verbrennt auch später Menschen. Das habe ich noch so im Gedächtnis.
I came home one day from school, and all of a sudden, everybody, I saw so many people, and everybody, he's coming, and I see thousands of people. Who is coming? Hitler was going through Müllerstraße. I was curious myself, so I went into a door, like a house door, and I watched. The women were screaming as he was going by, "Isn't he beautiful?"
Edith, Israel, and Hans see many of their non-Jewish friends embrace the changes brought by Nazi policy. Children of all ages are encouraged to join the Hitler Youth, a Nazi training organization.
Wie wir very, very naive. We were young and didn't exactly understand what happened.
But you know, as a young person, you're resilient and you think you have a future, you know, think you're indestructible.
I was self-confident, you know, and it came never to my mind that something really could happen to me.
Eventually, a law is passed making it mandatory for every non-Jewish child in Germany to join the Hitler Youth.
Every morning they were standing near the school and shouting at us, Juden raus, yeah? Juden to Palästina. And then they was always shouting, wenn das Judenblut vom Messer spritzt, da geht's doch mal so gut. If the blood of the Jewish people come off of the knives, then all will be much better. And my grandmother always tell me, these are your enemies.
There were many incidents when these Hitlerjugend boys would assault us. Most of the assaulting was done when there were quite a few of them. There would be 3 or 4 of them encouraging each other to assault. But once we were assaulted by a Hitlerjugend boy, tall one. He considered himself strong enough to assault 2 Jewish boys. We had our school bags on our backs. So the boy knew that we were coming from the nearby Jewish school. He called us dirty Jews and so on. I knew he would try to assault us. I hit him in the face that way that he fell down in the street. And you know, it was very dangerous to hit a Hitler boy. I could come home in the evening with a bloody shirt. So my mother was frightened. And so my father would tell to my mother, okay, you just wash his shirt. That's an easy job compared with what the boy has done. My father was very proud of him.
I always got stoned into the back of my knapsack. I got very angry, and I took my knapsack off, and I swung it, and I knocked a boy's tooth out. I came home crying because now I was afraid what is going to happen. My father gave me a spanking for doing such a thing. I didn't feel I did wrong. I was only defending myself. And he was telling me that now we might all have to go to jail.
When we came to school, then we pushed it all away. Yeah? We want to be with us, together and for God.
I always had that feeling, this is a haven for you, where you can be yourself, and you had more freedom in the school.
School started at 8 in the morning, and then finished in the afternoon at 3, and we had a break. And also, we used to go together, what we used to call the school feeding center, as they called it. My favorite food at that time was eggs, mashed potatoes, and spinach. That was, I never forget that. That was the main. Then you had chopped fish and mashed potato. Mostly made, there's no, forget the chips business. You know, fried now and then, but forget all this fried. That's what they were very good. They were excellent.
We had Hebrew, was morning and afternoon classes, algebra, chemistry, mathematics, history, some Jewish and German.
Every holiday when we had no school, we sneaked in the school, managed to pinch the keys, and we went to the gym. And we performed for hours. And of course, it was, although it was dangerous, God knows what, you know, on your own. In fact, we staged box fights, everything there. Just to keep up with the sport. You know, at that time, sport was everything. Because don't forget, we lived in Germany, and the Germans were so proud of their physique. Everything physical.
As Edith and her school friends reach their 10th birthdays, Hitler passes what was known as the Law for the Protection of German Blood and German Honor. This law and others, the Nuremberg laws, are devised to isolate Jews from other Germans. Through these laws and through constant intimidation, Hitler strips away their rights. The comforts of life are for non-Jews only.
In 1935, according to the just released Nuremberg law, Jewish children were no longer allowed to attend so-called German schools.
In a typical school in Germany, Jewish children are separated from the other students. The Jewish children with green lines under their names have one Christian parent, and for the time being are allowed to stay. Those with red lines are considered full Jews and are forced to leave for segregated schools designated by the Nazis.
So the few Jewish schools in the bigger cities of Germany suddenly were overcrowded by pupils coming from these German schools, so that from 600 or 700 in 33 and 34, we were suddenly 2,000 pupils.
Increasingly, students and teachers feel the threat from beyond the school walls. One day, a teacher is missing from school, then another. Most of these teachers are sent to Oranienburg, which, along with Dachau, is one of the first concentration camps built by the Nazis. At this time, it is a so-called work camp, and most of the teachers, after a few weeks of brutality and humiliation, are allowed to return to the school.
When the teachers returned from the concentration camp, they went to the original classes with the original subjects, and they carried on as if nothing happened. We kept our mouths shut, and they, of course, were quieter than we were even. Although we tried to nudge them into, where were you? And obviously you don't expect someone to go away and come back without telling us. But they just kept their mouths shut. Well, we were only glad to see them back. You know, we saw them and then, oh my God, they're still alive, thank God for that, and that's it. And you couldn't say any more. They were, in a way, kinder to us. You know, they were not as strict, and it was a different attitude suddenly, a quieter attitude, you know, a softer attitude.
My parents and I did not talk that much about these things. It was always the belief you keep a child away from what is happening. I mean, but you couldn't help it, but you were exposed to it.
You've got to keep your mouth shut in front of children in case the kids open their mouth, you know what I mean? So there was no problem. And I know in my home it was strange when my parents wanted to talk about something which they didn't want us to know. They just spoke in Polish and finished. There was no problem.
Nazi philosophy becomes daily classroom instruction for non-Jewish children. They're taught to identify Jewish boys and girls like Israel, Stefan, and Erna. It It's all in the storybook entitled The Poison Mushroom. How to detect a poisonous mushroom amongst the edible, healthy mushrooms. Jews are portrayed as poisonous and therefore threatening to the Nazi vision of a racially pure Germany. Education now functions solely to create a generation of Nazis.
German kids were my friends in the neighborhood. And then when, a particular German girl, when, she really liked me, but she couldn't have me come to her house anymore. And I would visit her at her house, and she'd come to my house until one day she came over personally to tell me that she really liked me, but that her father wouldn't allow her to have me come to the house anymore. So, well then, I don't want to come to your house, And that was it, and I think she was hurt too.
As Nazi policy and ideals begin to take hold, they affect the life of every Jewish man, woman, and child. The delights of childhood are not for Jewish children. Soon, they're forbidden even from keeping pets.
I love animals. And I had to give away Santa. He had the habit of running across the street, and we were warned. And then all of a sudden the dog disappeared. God knows where my parents brought him. They just told me the dog ran away. So my parents would never tell me about pet killing.
We had a little cat, and then we had to give the cat away. My problem is that I'm the only child, So I had nobody to play with. So this cat was really my friend. The German took the cat away and told me nothing will happen. But later I heard that they gave it poisoned meat.
Unser Spieß, der ist sehr strenge und der schleift uns, dass es kracht. Doch die Sache mit den Kindern hat auch ihm viel Spaß gemacht.
For the Nazis, home life in Germany is gemütlich, nice and comfortable.
It was going gradually worse from day to day. My mother was so taken by all these problems and trouble, so she couldn't take it anymore. She got a nervous breakdown. And that was very difficult for us children to take. She didn't have the strength to get up in the morning. She lay down in the bed. She didn't make any food anymore. So my father had to take care of the home even. And by that we children were very touched by it. She would be the one to protect us, but she couldn't. What about the food? When we come home, there's no food, no nothing. What can you do? You get angry at your mother. She was just not in her mind.
And always my mother was crying. Every day when I remember my mother was crying, what will be of us? What will be? And as a child, you're looking for something else. You don't like this crying in the family. You don't like to be as awful in a bad mood. So we always fled from this place, and we went through the streets, in the daytime, in the evening time, only not to be with our parents together.
In 1938, Stefan is 13. To his surprise, the Nazis decide he is to have a new name.
Suddenly, everybody had to add to his name the name of Israel, and women had to add the name of Sarah. That was kind of the first time when the Nazis wanted to mark the Jews, that everybody, just by telling their name already.
My name all of a sudden became from Edith Simonson to Sarah Simonson, meaning the minute you had to go to a court or whatever, to a police station, the minute they saw Sarah Simonson, right away they knew I was Jewish.
They had a list of names which were permitted to be used without adding Israel. One of them, of course, was Moses. I must admit, to us, it was a big joke. Hello, Israel, how are you? You know, and into Israel, half a dozen people turn around.
My father was a watchmaker and a jeweler. We had a little store, and he was a very gentle, sensitive man. Oh my God. See, it says here, this is the store. So you know this is a back entrance here. Oh. Can't believe it's still here. It was October 30th, 1938. The doorbell rang at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I must have heard it in my sleep already, because I remember having a dream that the police came to the door, and I woke up and the doorbell was ringing, and I jumped up and there was police at the door, one policeman asking for my father, and we started crying, my sister and I, and my mother jumped out of bed, came out first, and said, "Can you take me instead?" And the policeman had tears in his eyes, patted us on the head, and said, "No, I can't. I have to take your father, but it's nothing bad." That was the last time I saw my father. He was so far away, and he knew what we were feeling, what we were going through. He was a very lovely man. I'd like to mention his name, Mendel Schenkein.
Erna's father is deported to Poland, just one of 1,800 Jews of Polish descent who must leave Germany. Most of them will die, many brutally murdered in ghettos, in concentration camps. As teenagers, the students are awakened one night by the sound of shattering glass and the smell of burning. It is the 10th of November 1938, Kristallnacht, a night of terror and destruction. 30,000 Jews are rounded up and sent to concentration camps. Nazis burn over 1,000 synagogues and loot more than 7,000 Jewish shops and businesses.
I left the house with my satchel under my arm, and I walked towards school, and all the synagogues were burning that I could see in the air. And of course we didn't know what was going on.
I saw a store with the windows smashed in, and I thought, oh, must have been an accident. And I saw many more stores that was smashed, and I became very nervous. I ran home and called my mother. My mother was alone, and I said, "Did you go down to the store yet?" She said, "No." I said, "Don't go, don't go."
We saw them burning. They were burning all over, and we knew about it. And It was dreadful.
Our store was not touched. I think it was the only one in Berlin. Due to a super we had, he stood in front of the store, and when they came with the big vans and the rocks, they to smash the windows in, they said, "You're not touching Mr. Schenkein's store."
The teachers know precisely what Kristallnacht is, a serious warning. They prepare the children for the worst. The focus of their education changes. Instead of academic subjects, they are given lessons in metalwork and cooking, anything practical that may help the children survive.
I didn't finish my education. I went to school only for 7 years. And our head was not for studying, yeah? Our head was for surviving.
In the classrooms of the Grosse Hamburgerstrasse School, almost daily, there is another empty desk. Nazis continue to remove teachers, students and parents, and more families attempt to flee Germany.
And every day, some of your friends were not in the classroom, and it was smaller and smaller, and it was very depressing.
There were no friends anymore, yeah? One after the other left or was sent away, and I never thought they would see him again.
Well, we only talked to you, okay, who's next? That's all. That's all you could say, you know, who's next and who can you get out? And you were trying, do you know anybody who knows? Continuously we're saying, do you know anybody who knows a way how to get out?
I'm going to South America. I'm going to Shanghai. All the goodbyes and the crying. Now, these are all new friends that I made in Grosse Hamburger, and all of a sudden, here, we were separated.
Everyone now wants to get out of Germany. In 1938, laws forbidding Jews to leave the country are not yet established, but most aren't able to get out. You need money, you need connections. And while the Nazis make it hard to leave, other countries make it hard to enter. Some, like Sonia, are lucky. She boards a Kindertransport, a special train carrying Jewish children bound for freedom in England. The two boyhood friends, Israel and Mendel, are separated.
When my friend was sent to Poland, yeah, I felt very, very angry.
We were boys, so obviously we didn't cry. That's for a start. You know, you're big boys, you don't cry. You know what I mean? A handshake is good enough. That's it. You know, it's sissies. You know, you had this silly idea that only girls cry.
One of my friends, yeah, was sent away against his will, against the possibility to live together, to be together, to grow together, to be happy together.
And we said goodbye, and that's it. Inside is a different thing, you know, you're choked, as simple as that. 2 minutes the train moved out, and I was in the toilet crying like a baby.
I didn't know what to do, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried. A lot of time, for months. And said, Mendel, where are you? Mendel, where are you?
By the end of 1938, only a handful of students are left. Everyone now fits into a single classroom, with boys and girls sitting side by side for the first time.
I remember the first time when girls came to school. At first, of course, we looked one another with suspicion, yeah, that something we don't know. And later, in the last years, we were in the same class. Of course, and it was a friendship we didn't experience before.
We agreed to stay behind in school when school time was over, taking a gramophone with us and going up in the attic and playing music and dance together.
It was the first time a very, very nice and interesting experience. Yeah?
Some of the girls by chance knew that the door was open, it wasn't locked. And she told us we could go up there and dance.
Remember when we first went in the corner and kissed one the other, yeah? And for a child, of course, it was nothing special, yeah? We know it is not allowed, yeah? But it was very, very nice and sweet. Yeah?
It was a melody. Now I come to the melody. La 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 la. And we the noise of the dancing and the music would go down all the schools to the bottom of the schools, to the entrance where the watcher was situated. And he heard the sound because after school there were no other sounds. So then he came up and threw us out.
You want to do something to go your life. You want to forget all your surroundings. Yeah? You forget all what happened, the outside world. We were here on the roof, yeah, over here.
Fine, yeah.
Illegally. They tell us we must be careful now, not to be caught, yeah, again. To go up.
Once you were in the house, you stayed in the house because you were afraid. You didn't go out at night at all. I mean, there was no such a thing. You were petrified.
On September the 1st, 1939, Germany invades Poland. On that same day, a curfew was imposed on Jews throughout Germany, forbidding them to leave their homes after 8 p.m. 2 days later, on September the 3rd, World War II begins, as the Allied forces declare war on Germany. In September 1941, another law is passed, forcing every Jewish person to wear a yellow star at all times in public.
It was my duty to give them over to the Jewish people. They came up to the Grosse Hamburgerstrasse in the gymnastic hall. We got the yellow stars in sheets, and we had to cut them out. One of them, it was about 20 pfennig, I think so. And the people take it and had to throw it on the clothes.
And one day they told us, now you have to wear the yellow star. And we didn't understand why. But this means for me that I'm not equal anymore. This is a problem, yeah? You're feeling as a prisoner, even if you're not a prisoner, yeah? Even if you cannot go around, everybody looking at you, everybody staring at you, everybody spitting at you, yeah? Bloody Jew, yeah, and such things.
In a wealthy section of the city, a beautiful lake, the Wannsee, is a favorite playground for Berliners. On January the 20th, 1942, a conference is held here in this lakeside villa. The meeting is chaired by Reinhard Heydrich, head of Germany's security police, the SS. Heydrich is to coordinate Hitler's final solution, a national effort to exterminate all remaining Jews in Europe. In a matter of weeks, Grosse Hamburgerstrasse and all other Jewish schools in Berlin are shut down.
On March 3rd, 1942, we celebrated the Purim festival at our school. And on the 31st, I graduated. Our class was the last class to graduate, as very soon thereafter, all Jewish schools were closed.
We were the highest class in school. We were the last class.
The school piano has survived from 1942. It was played on the last day of school as the Gestapo arrived to close Grosse Hamburgerstrasse.
Röslein, Röslein, Röslein rot, Röslein auf der Heiden.
The remaining children must scatter and try as best they can to stay alive. They face constant danger, hunger, fear. Desperation forces one to survive in extraordinary ways. In Hans's case, the practical lessons from his teachers help him through. He survives by hiding in Berlin's Weissensee Cemetery, where he once worked as a gardener.
Verschiedene Gräber, die ich kannte. Und zwar Gräber, die überdacht waren und die wir auch pflegen mussten und wo ich wusste, dass man da den Boden, dass man am Boden eine Platte aufmachen konnte und konnte dann reinsteigen. Es gab auch Gräber, die am nächsten Tag benutzt wurden und die waren abgedeckt. Da konnte man reingehen. Aber am besten war es natürlich, in ein vorbereitetes Grab reinzugehen, wie ich es erzählt hatte. Da hatte ich also 2 Decken versteckt und ein bisschen was zum Essen. Und da hatte ich Verpflegung gehabt. Und dadurch war es etwas leichter, nicht? Denn so hatte man ja sehr gefroren. Es war ja im Februar 1943.
Hundreds, more than half the children and teachers from the school, are deported to death camps. Hans and Israel are 2 who survived Auschwitz. A memorial next to the school marks the site of the deportation center where Hans, who is finally tracked down by the Nazis, begins his journey to Auschwitz in July 1943. He is 18.
After the first days, one of our teachers, in the morning, we wake up and his bed was empty. There was a pair of shoes, in it a little piece of paper, and it's written, "I'm sure I can't come through. Give the shoes to somebody who needs it. Please excuse me." And the same night, our teacher went to the barbed wire, electric barbed wire, and died immediately. Because he had not the courage to try, because he was so afraid. You forgot in the camp all. You have only one thought, to come through the next day and to survive.
By 1944, the students' childhoods are now behind them. Miraculously, Gunther survives the war in Berlin. Having a Christian mother spares him from the death camps.
On the day the American aircrafts came, they all bombed Berlin. I remember one time that there came so many American bombers that you couldn't see the sun. It was in the middle of the day. We were very happy.
Ich verlese die Namen der Ermordeten stellvertretend für alle ermordeten Schüler unserer Schule. Lothar Heljasowitsch, in Auschwitz ermordet. Walter Jaffe, in Auschwitz ermordet. Ralf Bentheim, in Auschwitz ermordet. Wolfgang Kassierer, in Auschwitz ermordet. Bernd Schnapp, nach Riga deportiert und dort ermordet. Werner Goldstein, in Majdanek ermordet. Joachim Siebold, in Auschwitz ermordet. Jobst Klonower, in Auschwitz ermordet. Rudolf Juliusburger, deportiert und ermordet. Harry Segal, in Auschwitz ermordet. Siegfried Skornik, in Auschwitz ermordet. Heinz Bukowza, in Auschwitz ermordet. Antmann, Arntheim, Poliva, Arnold Rütt, Dagobert Mann, Soltan,
Shochen Bam Ramin, Urechin Chona Chona, Urechin Chona Chona, Tachakan
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
4 generations of David Schnapp's family, including David's grandmother, Rose Marie, herself a survivor of Auschwitz, witnessed David's bar mitzvah. The Schnapp family and countless other Jewish families throughout Europe are a testament to the defeat of Adolf Hitler and the ultimate failure of the final solution. The survivors have established new lives all over the world. Stefan in Sweden, Erna, Edith, and Henry in the United States, and some like Sonia, Israel, and Gunther in Israel.
It's a feeling, it's undescribable, because some of us, we were such a good comrades in school. We meet outside of school and were together. And suddenly we disappeared, everybody in another direction. And after the war, we didn't know even, we didn't think anybody is alive anymore.
And I never thought that we'd see him again. And now, when at the first time, I was so surprised. I didn't know. I immediately phoned to Mendel. This is you, yeah.
returning schoolmates are all Berliners, brought up in the old German capital of the 1930s.
We're in the middle of making history. When I say we, I'm a Berliner. I feel myself part of Berlin.
So much has changed. More than 5 decades have passed. Returning to Berlin is difficult. What happened here can never be forgotten. For those who have made this journey, the reunion at the Grosse Hamburgerstrasse School serves as a profound tribute to all their school friends and teachers who could not return. It has been more than 50 years since the survivors of the Holocaust were liberated at the end of World War II, each carrying a unique and valuable perspective on the devastating effects of prejudice and hatred. The interviews you've just seen are from tens of thousands recorded all over the world by survivors of the Shoah Visual History Foundation. Shoah is the Hebrew word for Holocaust. And the mission of the Shoah Foundation is to videotape eyewitness testimony of Holocaust survivors so that we may see their faces and hear their voices long after the last survivor is gone. Now, when the testimony of each survivor is recorded, the original videotapes are sent to the Foundation, where groundbreaking technology will allow future generations to learn about history from people who were actually there. This archive will be an invaluable tool as we struggle to understand the catastrophe of the Holocaust and strive to enrich our world by learning from the lessons of our past.